All right, so good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is, I'll name this segment later, GTG spits that grease, etc., etc., etc. Work in progress. So if the title hasn't already given me away yet, I'd like to talk to you, if I could, about essentially DSP and Kino Casino are in a form of a Lolcow arms race. Who will win? Everyone is going to essentially use everyone, and could this lead to the rise of another internet blood sports, if you will? Now, I have really since the DMs have come out is really when I started to think about it, because to be honest, one could say, oh, Kino Casino kicked all of this off when they said they were going to talk about the DMs and they were going to bring It's a Gundam in. But in truth, I would really put that on DSP trying to strike first with his Scud missiles, if it isn't just outright, self-destruction, if he wasn't just a suicide bomber. And in him bringing in Review Tech USA, which failed miserably, obviously. So what is the circumstances behind all of this? What's the point of all this? Well, partially it's entertainment and it's content, and the other half is just pettiness, to be honest with you. DSP, let's go with the pettiness first, because that's always fun. DSP is going to try to align himself with whoever will take his side, whoever will deal with him and whatnot. He has already touched the depths of bullshit as it pertains to Kino Casino. As much as entertaining as Kino Casino is, if you have followed Andy and or PPP's history, you know that these aren't really guys that you too often want to be aligned with. To be honest with you, I would say Andy probably has the better reputation than PPP, but even then I wouldn't say that, because that whole aim thing, where he literally wanted a dude that they really didn't really even know go ahead and gun a bunch of people down because he couldn't take an ass whooping. On top of the fact that Andy could have very well gotten himself, Failure was there, and that third guy who ended up going to jail for them, and Andy didn't say a word about that. He could have gotten all of them killed because they didn't know if any one of those guys were strapped. So that's only one of the many fuck ups on Andy's part. PPP, the meme of, oh, he's a snake, he turns on everybody, this is what PPP does, that's not a joke. PPP turns on everybody. You are content to him. You are useful until you're not useful. He's just far more efficient with doing it, and he's far better at getting away. That doesn't mean his enemies have forgotten about him. It just means that PPP is such a worthy as well as efficient, reputable, effective adversary that it's not easy to approach him. Coming at him from the front's not good. Coming at him from the back, isn't any better. Coming at him from the sides, he doesn't have too many weaknesses that he's not willing to exploit himself to use against you. And you have no clue necessarily what he has on you. And that goes into the internet blood sports part of it. It's a messy, dirty game. Anything and everything's up for grabs. This whole, we don't go IRL, we don't touch the poo, we don't cow tip, but stop. None of that is a thing when it comes to internet blood sports, if that's how this goes. But so that's essentially what we're going to speak on. So with that being said, let me bring out something that I haven't used in quite a while. But I kind of came up with this idea for streams, but I don't see why I can't use it here. So let me bring this up. This is Obsidian and whatnot, and this is one of the features in it, which allows you to do certain things. And let me see here. Actually, I got to do it over here. All right. So here we're at the very beginning or the top here, as you can see, and whatnot. Our Lolcow arms race. And we're gonna get into our players, which is DSP as well as Kino Casino. Now, as we all know, up to this particular point, if that video is not out yet, it's coming. Where I talk about DSP's announcement of 3 potential people that he'll have over the next 3 weeks on Smart Guys. There'll be a video following that, which announces that goes over DSP's announcement of Ethan Ralph. There'll be an actual longer video that should come after that as well, talking about that and how that's going to go and how that's going to work out. And then supposedly, because I haven't had a chance to watch all of it yet, this is the event that happened last night or on Friday in my current timeline, where they had the Gundam PPP in Kino Casino stream, I should say. And allegedly, PPP said he knows who all three of the people who are going to be on the show, which is going to be Mersh. He's not up there, but fuck Mersh. Mersh, Ethan Ralph, and supposedly Biersten is going to be up there. So that should be interesting. But but this is just what he thinks. He's not sure. DSP could easily pull a bait switch on him. Cog could be up there. Who could say? Then you get into other people as well. So you got Ethan Ralph, who that trash fire of a show is going to be interesting depending on whether he's sober or not. And either which way, Ethan is a pretty decent showman. Anybody's a better showman than DSP if you think about it, except for Rich. They're both him and Rich and DSP are both pieces of trash. But Ethan could outshine DSP on almost all fronts. If Ethan Ralph is sober, rage pig or not, he can run circles around DSP easy. And as a wrestling fan, I believe Ethan Ralph could literally easily run circles around him on the old stuff. I don't know about the current shit, but on the old stuff, I know for sure Ethan Ralph could run circles around his ass. So that's the thing. Cog's a grifter. Whether he knows anything about wrestling, who knows? Who cares? And whatnot. Anything that can help him get further, that can further his agenda against Kino Casino, is what it is. Steel Toe, or Aaron, I should say, from Steel Toe Morning Show. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up getting in on some of this action and siding with DSP, because, to be honest, he doesn't have anything going on. Now that the whole case with Nick Rekieta is pretty much over, and though he was right, or he was honest about some of the stuff, he lied about a bunch of other shit too. He needs something, to keep his name out there, to keep him somewhat relevant, if you will, So jumping in there it's not a bad thing. It don't really hurt him, if you will. If DSP gives him the opportunity, he may very well go up there. Nick Rekieta, which I already done a video on that should be out by now, is an interesting case in that Nick is sober. He's on a PR tour. It's not an apology tour. He's on a PR tour currently, making his rounds. DSP reached out to him. Maybe Nick talks to him, maybe he don't. It doesn't really matter. I'm sure Nick would have quite a bit to say to Kino Casino, but he's not going to do it directly because he believes he's above them and he's trying to work out his details in other ways. Matter of fact, if you give me a second, I should put Mersh up here. Give me a minute. Okay. So, sorry. Took a small break for a minute. I wanted to do some quick research and I wanted to add some stuff to it. So I ended up adding Mersh from Nightwave up there, which, if you start getting to some of the Rose Gallery of people as it pertains to the sector or adjacent to, or so on and so forth, you could very well get Dick Masterson in here and his in-house pedophile Vito the Pedo, as well as other shit. Like you really, if depending on how this all works out, this could really branch out into some real bullshit. These are what-if type scenarios, ladies and gentlemen. These are what-if type scenarios. So that gives you an idea of what goes on, or some of the potential people that are on DSP's, that DSP could potentially get to his side. Now let's go on to Kino's side. Kino can pull in detractors, trolls, haters, and critics, the usual suspects, basically. And then normies. Now, what I mean by normies in particular are guys who aren't really adjacent to this shit, who don't really do this shit, but who may watch it. For example, Yellow Flash had spoken about I think he spoke about the DMs on Twitter, I think it might have been. And so he may speak on it. He comes from the comic book community. He floats around some other stuff too. So he may want to say something about it. Tug or that Umbrella guy might have something to say about this. Which those guys are also adjacent to Nick Rekieta. I don't know if they're beefing or whatnot, but they used to be on the same side until, Nick went another way with it. this could really branch out into a bunch of stuff. And yet again, it could lead into another coming of internet blood sports with PPP and Andy, or Kino Casino, if you will, right there in the middle of it. Now that I think about it, Godwinson, who commented on the DMs and actually spoke about, if I remember correctly, he had commented on how PPP and Andy, how they transfer money to each other in such a way to where it seems like they're avoiding Canadian taxation, I should say, by doing it. Or so, he alluded to something along the lines. Nothing will probably ever come out of that. But the fact that he decided to mention that, he decided to bring that up as a talking point, speaks volumes all in itself. So that's the thing. But let's go with, but like I said, that's kind of getting into the internet blood sports thing if you want to go that route. Let's just talk about the Lolcow arms race. Then you get into another interesting, then we get to, so those are the sides basically. And you can have a bunch of different back and forths. If you're DSP, you're going to try to milk all those people for content if you can even get them. With Kino Casino, they reached out to Gundam already, so he's already the first person that's gone over there. Who knows who else they get over there? Duty, I would assume. If they can, they'll probably try to reach out to that being said, or any detractor who's looking for an opportunity. And just that anybody who can felt DSP in any way, shape, or form. I didn't put Review Tech USA up here because fuck Review Tech USA, just in case you're asking. But let's get to the end goal of this Lolcow arms race for the most part, because there's going to be a bunch of skirmishes, there's going to be a bunch of back and forth. Most of it's going to blow up in DSP's face. Let's call a spade a spade. We'll see how the Ethan, actually, be honest with you, I think depending on how the Ethan Ralph situation goes, will depend if there's even any other guests that show up after the fact, to be honest. And actually with that, I'm probably jumping ahead just a bit. Let's look at the goals of some of these people on DSP side. DSP has basically had his cherry busted by PPP and Kino Casino. So now he's looking at going at the grudges of people and trying to collect Kino Casino's enemies to have his way to make his way. Or, as DSP said recently, the ends justify the means. I hope now he doesn't really understand what he means when he says that, but know for sure that he's gonna have to live and die by that if that's what it is. Anybody who lives by, the ends justify the means, you're willing to die behind that, which more often than not is what happens. People usually fall on their swords for shit like that. You're making your proverbial deal with the devil to make your way in this, that, and the third. I know. Most of you are like, oh, well, DSP is King Snake. He's Snake Eater and whatnot. And he can snake the snakes and this, that, and the third. Not realizing, because DSP's a retard, not realizing that by you putting that energy and that edict out there, by you putting out all these fantastic, ridiculous, and pathetic lies to PPP and Kino Casino, and then say that it was all an act. You did it to get your way, to make your way, to have your way. No one of any respectability will more than likely, I should say, not talk to you. You know what I'm saying? That interview that you wanted with fucking Mutahar, that's probably gone. That's probably off the table now, to be honest, unless he's going through somebody else. And even then, after that Nux situation, I don't see him wanting to deal with much anybody anymore. That's not a look. If you guys really look into that Mutahar situation, he may want to stay away from people for a while. You're definitely not going to get a chance to talk to Sir Moist, you know what I'm saying, or Mr. Moist Critical. That's off the table too. You're probably never going to talk to Justin or any of them guys now, because the moment you announce it, it won't be long until they get flooded with all that bullshit that you did. Lying about your wife being sick and having cancer or possibly having cancer. Your thing with your parents and this, that, and the third. Bringing up alleged dead pets and all that ridiculous crap. Nah, no one's going to want to deal with that. No one's going to want to deal with that. And it won't be long. So DSP is going to try to be secretive about it. But because DSP is a mark for himself, he'll probably always announce the day before, at the very least, because he wants to build up hype, who that person is and when they're coming on to the show. Which is probably one of the reasons why he did that with Rich, even though Rich had opened his gullet, only a day or two before anyway. So it kind of makes sense that DSP was going to announce it. But he's probably going to, for the more respectable guests, anybody from the FGC who can trust him enough to go on stream with him, you know, that's probably going to be a last minute decision. It's just not a very good idea. Which is funny, now I think about it, because he ain't taking that ass whooping from VDO. And I got to tell you, I don't remember VDO ever being part of Team Hate. I really don't. I don't remember that whatsoever. Unless he was up there briefly. So I don't get that. But VDO will play anybody, essentially. You know what I'm saying? He ain't never ran from nobody. He has no reason to and whatnot. He's good wherever he goes, unlike DSP, who has to stay in the Snort for a day because he's scared that he's going to get jumped. So, I don't know what the situation with is or the dynamics of that relationship just yet, but I'm looking into it. But anybody with any real respectability in the FGC is not going to talk to him. Beating him up on stream is one thing, but talking to him is a whole nother thing in itself. So that is what that is. But what he's done with Kino Casino is going to have repercussions, and they're going to have reverberations that he's not going to be able to explain away, because there is no justifiable reason for any reasonable person to say what he said in those DMs. That's not a thing. And honestly, if you look at some of the people that is under Darksydephil, it kind of makes sense. Now, not to say any of those people have done any of that or even a variation of it, but these aren't very scrupulous people, obviously. So DSP is kind of in good company, but even then, he's still probably the worst of the worst when you think about it. As it pertains to detractors, trolls, haters, critics, and normies, everybody's safe essentially over there for Kino Casino, because, you know, they've dealt with most of the people on DSP side anyway, if you will. It really comes down to anybody who decides to go over to Kino Casino, because there is a faction within the DSP detractor community that believes in guilt by association. If you do anything with Kino Casino, you're tying your brand over there with them. So just be wary, or at least understand the concept behind that. Yeah, I get it, it's all content, it's all shits and giggles, this, that, and the third. But what is that going to look like 2 years from now when PPP, Andy, or both go off on some crazy ass tangent or whatever, and then when people go back and look at their history or whatnot, they go back and look through their shows. Oh, well, who's this guy? Oh, who's this person? Oh, who's that? And then they start looking into you. Something you should probably think about. Yeah, content's content, I get that. I roger that all day. But you do need to look at the long term. See, Kino Casino doesn't think that way. The commentator community, for the most part, don't think that way. But if you want a cautionary tale, look no further than Turkey Tom. He ain't sat there and fucked himself up to such a point where he can't do anything but online shit. And he's admitted this publicly. He has fucked himself so bad in IRL that he essentially has to do this. The only person who has pretty much played it smart out of that whole little group is probably Nick. Nick has his online success, but he also has his IRL shit. And despite the fact that he's been doxxed and this, that, and the third, he's still able to carry on an offline life. And for the most part, no one's really targeted him, even though there's enough people in the commentary community who already are looking to stab him in the back, and he already knows it, and he should know it at the very least. So he has his own problems, but the point is that if he needs to leave offline for whatever reason, he can. Someone like Tom can't. He's stuck. Augie's damn near that way too, unless Augie's just straight up in hiding. So keep in mind, all these guys that were saying it was all edgy jokes, it was all this bullshit, yada, yada, yada. And while they were out there wanting to protect their, being allies to all these different groups and this, that, and the third, look at what happened to Tipster. Look at what happened to Bo Blacks. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, Turkey Tom can't really move the way he want to move. He ain't got into a car accident like a year or two ago, and people on Twitter were cheering about that shit, and he got mad about it, that people weren't concerned. Augie had to hide because of a picture of his mother, who I think he put it out there. But a picture of his mother made it out there and shit, and that shit made its rounds, and he got nervous and whatnot. So he had to disappear for a minute. And then, like I said, someone doxed Nick's phone number or some shit. And then someone figured out where he was at. But, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, that's all kind of smoothed over. So don't get me wrong, there's collateral damage with all of this bullshit. So if you're a detractor, troll, hater, or critic, you have to think about that too. Yeah, it's all online content, this, that, and the third, but be careful who you associate with. Now, to our end game is the bank. I think the real end game of it is Lolcow Live. It's very clear, excuse me, that when PPP presented, you see this in the DMs, when PPP presented this opportunity, I think it was supposed to be on like on a Monday or some shit, to, hey, you know, Phil, you, me, and Andy are gonna go up there and we're gonna talk to Kino Casino. It's gonna be crazy viewership. There's gonna be a lot of money up there. It'll be a lot of exposure. It's gonna be great. And DSP immediately shied away from it. Even though he had his protective blanket with Kino Casino, he still didn't want to go up there and do that. Well, for Kino Casino, that's what they want. They want viewership. They want exposure. Because they know with all of that comes money. And even comes other opportunities and shit. Which, now that I think about it, it's funny that PPP was trying to negotiate DSP into a deal with Stakes, which is a online gambling site / service. He was trying to negotiate a deal for DSP to get into that, but PPP, who is an avid sports fan himself, doesn't have that deal. Which is weird to me because, truth be told, I'm really surprised Kino Casino doesn't have that deal yet. Now, not to say they haven't been working on it, because it's weird to get another man a deal that you don't have yourself or you don't have any ambitions to get. But I am surprised, why would they put DSP in that position while they're not there yet? Semantics, but it makes me think that there's more to that story that we don't know about. I'll save that as one of my own little investigation type things. So that's the thing in itself. But Kino Casino's the bank. Now, I'm not talking about Kino Casino, or sorry, Lolcow Live is the bank. I'm not saying that Kino Casino is trying to go under that umbrella. There's no need for that. And that's lame, actually. Truth be told, Kino Casino has their own brand, you know, brand partnerships, or, you know what I'm saying, work out far better for them than actually going under that umbrella, unlike someone like Review Tech USA, who has no prospects and needs another man to take care of him. Besides his father, of course. So, oh, and Duty. So that would be that situation there. There's a lot of opportunity for crossover with that. It gives them a chance to mingle. It gives them a chance to grow their viewership with somewhat like-minded people who they already have in their own fan base or viewer base. So it's a win-win. And DSP was going to be that diving board, if you will, for not just himself, but for them as well. And I think that's the end game. At least as it pertains to the Kino Casino arc. And then where does Andy and PPP go from there? It doesn't really matter. Wherever they want to go, to be honest with you. There's always going to be drama online. And there's always going to be a demand for people to talk about it. Excuse me. But that's what this situation is. That's my thoughts on the Lolcow arms race. Now, as it pertains to Bloodsports 2.0, or 3.0 really, because there has been there was a push for internet blood sports to happen again after the infamous Mr. Medicare stream, where all those people went up there and yelled at each other for like 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever it was. So there was already a revival, or someone attempted to do a revival of it. It was short. It was really, really short, to be honest. It was super short. Actually, for some of you lore monkeys out there who may remember this, there was an attempt to revitalize SOK, not by actual SOK members per se. Some guy randomly with a voice changer, an obvious voice changer, was trying to revitalize SOK at one time or another. That didn't last long. And then there was another attempt, or an alleged attempt, I should say, with a couple of people who I won't name. Not that I have any allegiance to them or anything. I don't see a point in doing it now. But that there was a couple of people who were floating around the community. Some of you guys know them, or you know some of them anyway, who were floating around the idea of trying to rebuild SOK too, as SOK as well, and that didn't work out for various reasons. So the idea of bringing back up internet blood sports is not an old idea, to be honest with you. It's just no one really knows how to structure it. No one really knows how the money's going to get cut up. And then more importantly than that, and this is the most important part, no one wants to take this shit back to real life again. The same things that fucked up internet blood sports, no one wants to redo that. So, but if Kino Casino can isolate it in such a way, with two people being PvP and Andy, who were on opposite sides of that spectrum at that time, if they could figure it out, if they could figure out a way to do it, you know what I'm saying, amongst, you know, the lolcows, if you will, or eccentric people, it could work. It could very well work. To be honest with you, it could be incredibly profitable, as it was the first time, before people like Baked Alaska and some of those other idiots ain't sat there and screwed it all up for no reason. So that's the thing. So let me work on the concept of Internet Blood Sports 2.0 and Internet Blood Sports 2.0. Let me actually sit there and really think about that, on how that could work out and how could that be structured, and how DSP or how lolcows in general could be inserted into it. At the same time, ladies and gentlemen, I have to be honest with you that Lolcow Live, even though they've shown no interest in anything as it pertains to the Kino Casino arc at the moment, are winning. They're winning because DSP now willing to reach out and to intermingle and talk to some of these people who he never talked to. PvP in some way, or Kino Casino I should say, in some ways has opened up a door for DSP, which has opened up a door to Lolcow Live, which is the final destination for Darksydephil, believe it or not. It really is. It's really the final destination. There's a reason why Rich went there the first time, couldn't hack it, which is weird because the fucking bar over there is incredibly low, to be honest with you. But Rich couldn't even fucking make it work. But DSP has more leverage than Rich does, and as disgusting as that sounds, and as disgusted as I am to say that, it's true. That may very well be DSP's final destination if he wants another big payday. It's alleged that he made $40,000 or $50,000 in the 8 or 9 months he was with Kino Casino. Let's say 8 months, I think. 7 months, really. Really 7 months, actually. 7 to 8, let's say that. If he can make that amount of money with Lolcow Live, he will do it sooner than later. Question is, can he go over there and do what he wants? Basically, you know, minimum effort, minimum time, and minimum time involved with maximum profit. Or is Kino Casino, or not Kino Casino, I'm sorry, is Lolcow Live, Keemstar in particular, looking at this situation? Is Boogie and Wings looking at this situation and being like, we don't need him, and we probably shouldn't even bring him over here, given what's going on there? Now, I have a video in the works about, does DSP have a second chance, or could DSP have a second chance with Lolcow Live? I won't spoil it, because I should just go ahead and go over that. But given what their situation looks like, I don't know. I really don't. Before those DMs dropped, I would have been like, yeah, more than likely. Now, I don't know. I don't know if DSP is really worth the trouble, to be honest. I don't think he actually provides the profitability, if you will, amongst detractors as a whole. You know, Duty and whoever's associated with him will go over there and throw around money because that's what he does. But is Piece of Peace going to do that? Is Agent Proper going to do that? Is Meerkat or Alt going to do that? Is Tevin going to do that? You know what I'm saying? Or is Brand Dude or Atlas or any of those guys going to do that shit? More than likely, no. I don't mean to speak for them. I'm just throwing out an assumption. I don't know any of them. I have no, you know, I'm not here to speak on their behalf. But outside of Duty, which we know for sure will do that, I don't think any of those other guys will. So how much money can they really get off of that? You know what I'm saying? And the viewership spike will only last for a little while until detractors just get bored, and then we'll just go to one centralized person. Dark Dave Mirrors, Raw Phil, and any detractor who decides to restream that particular Lolcow Live that night. Other than that, there are already independent clip channels who do all that already. If you look at how it's structured now, I should say, how the demographic, how the atmosphere, how the economy is now, as it pertains around Lolcow Live, I don't think DSP's profitable. I think DSP's time and profitability heights, if you will, has already fizzled out. I don't think it's there anymore. But I'll save that for another video. So that's my thoughts. That's my initial framing of this thing, or at least a skeleton frame, if you will. I can go into it deeper later on. Let's get past the Ethan Ralph show. Let's get past just the next 3 shows, but let's just get past the Ethan Ralph episode first, and then we'll see what's what. This should be out before then, and we'll see what happens. But the way I look at it, the way I think it's going to be laid out, this is where we're going. DSP is going to seek out the enemies of his enemies and see if they'll play ball. Just because Rich wasn't, you know what I'm saying, wasn't smart enough to look into the long term to see what was what, doesn't mean everybody else will. You know what I'm saying? There are other people that are willing to play along, to find out what he's doing, to find out what he has, and go from there. So for those of you who, I wouldn't go as far as any of you praising Rich, but for some of you who think, you know, hey, Rich handled it in a decent way, he didn't want to hear the bullshit, this, that, and the third, wait and see how this plays out. Wait and see what it's like to see someone else who's willing to not play ball, because it's not about playing ball. When DSP told Rich about the DMs and whatnot, Rich's peak, that should have piqued Rich's interest on what was in those DMs. Instead, Rich couldn't get his head out of his own ass, and then that's why everything ended the way it did. Wait and see how someone else plays DSP. Wait and see how other people get the mileage out of him, if they can. You know what I'm saying? None of us ever really thought that Kino Casino would have gone as far as they did. So when you look back at someone like Rich, and you look at how the red carpet, the proverbial Gouty red carpet, if you will, was rolled out for him, and he did nothing with it, really says something. But like I said, let's let time show us what the situation is on that. No matter what, Rich is never going to be right, so it doesn't really matter. So, but we'll see how this all plays out and whatnot. And you guys let me know what you think and whatnot. Do you feel that this might actually be the end game? This is how it all works out, or you guys see it going left in another way? You guys can let me know if you feel the need to in the comment section below. Ladies and gentlemen, this is I'll name this segment later, GTG, Spits That Grease, etc., etc. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. You know what I'm saying? Take care of yourselves. Later, people.